Hey everyone, welcome to Arch's Garage, and in this video we're going to be talking about load centers. Yeah, load centers. Gremlins in your load centers. Potential issues that you don't know that is lurking behind the door. Serious issues I've had with this, and so let's get started. I want to walk you through a little bit of history so that you guys have some idea of what's going on. These things, to start off with, they're about 20 years old, 15 years old, somewhere like that. One came before the other. I ran power from the house. I just recently upgraded from 100 amp service, or whatever it was, 150 amp service, to 200. And then many years ago I ran trenches and I brought power and water and gas out here, and this run here is all like double aught copper cable supplying that box, comes into that box there. And all this is 220 on this whole run. And then this is my sub panel, so it feeds the 110 over here. And of course I've got brand new stuff coming down the pole, you know, out of the trees, down the wire, down the pole, the side of the house, new meter, one of those silly little electronic meters, which that's just not good. You don't want one of those, but I had no choice. Into a nice 200 amp panel. These are Murray boxes. Some nice breakers are in here. And I installed all this stuff myself, but I actually, when I got done, I had a friend of mine who does a lot more of this, you know, for a living. I don't do it anymore. I'm not an electrician, and so he kind of gave it the blessing, right? So the rabbi blessed everything. Everything seemed good. I try to do everything by code. So I have to start off with that. I'm not an electrician. I did do everything by code. I had somebody that is very knowledgeable and does electrical work, and his electrician checked this off, so everything was good, and I really didn't have to touch it. I added a few, you know, piggyback breaker circuits in, these small little micro breakers. But again, I've tried to balance everything, and starting off with that, you can see I got a nice system here, and everything should have been fine. Now, let's get into a little bit about what happened, because I want to set the stage here for you guys. So I want you guys to start thinking, hey, maybe that's not me, or maybe that is me. Maybe that is happening. This kind of thing can happen to anybody, and my sister retired from 911, and we were talking about it one day, and she said, as far as, you know, apart from, like, you know, calls of like murders and knifings, but the thing that I think the largest volume of calls to fire department, etc., from 911 is electrically oriented fire. So that's important, right? Because which, if there's a gas situation too in the house, right, and flammables, it starts off with an electrical issue that creates the sparks and everything, and the power just keeps rolling in, and these things are not going to prevent fires, really, for the most part. If you really overload a circuit, they'll pop. But sparks and things like that cause serious issues and loss of life and property every year. So I want to start off with that and a bit of a disclaimer. Now, a bunch of years ago, for quite some time, I remember the transformer on the pole, the red light was on, and then sometimes it would go sort of like a yellowy orange. And I kept calling the power company and saying, you guys got to get rid of that can. Well, a couple of years ago, it blew up and sent surge down the wires, and the people closest to it, they had fires in their air conditioner. I had all these little outlets and everything. They were all on like fire and smoking and running around the house and the shop trying to figure out, you know, is anything on fire? What do I do? Power went off, and it damaged the bus. So let's just take a quick look at the bus, and I want to show you the bus. When I refer to the bus, it's the actual contact point where all the power is distributed inside the load center to the breakers themselves. Alright, so as you can see here, I'll give you an up-close look of the burning and the damage to the bus itself. It's pretty bad. And then, of course, some of the breakers themselves, and this one in particular, and you'll be able to see in the upcoming part of this video, you'll be able to see sort of the arcing, the debris left behind by the arcing. You'll be able to see indications of a white powder powdery substance, which is an oxidation, and then it can even be darker than that, maybe a little bit gray. It may differ depending upon what junk is laying around or what's in the air and what it's burning. Now, part of the problem I had was I had the original meter pan that was on there. That was also causing problems, and it also damaged the old meter in the meter pan outside. That got damaged, and finally it had kind of shit the bed. So I replaced all of that, like I said, so we got all new service. Now, one of those boxes out there, the 110 box, I found issues in that as well. I'm going to show you that. Not as bad as the main box, as the primary box, but not like this. But bad enough. Now, I replaced this, fellas. I actually took one out of an older box I had, one of the original boxes to the house, and the rest of the box, which I'll show you coming up, was kind of rusted and whatever. But the distribution part was in good shape, so I was able to use that to rebuild the main box right out here. So it's something you want to look for. You may have to replace everything, sadly, and work with what you have. However, on a budget, with me, guys, everything is on a budget, so I will always work with whatever I have if I have it. And I try to collect things for this stuff. So there are ways to, and I'm going to show you in this video. First things first, guys, shut the power off. Make sure you're safe. Always work safe. Wear safety glasses. And once you've got to that point, then you're going to want to pull your breakers off and take a good look in the pan, the box itself, at the bus, at the breakers. Look for the signs that you're going to see here, and I'm going to go through with you guys what I do on a budget to sort of clean these things up. Now, you're going to need, I talk a bit about it, you're going to need compressed air for sure. And I'm going to show you, you're going to need brake cleaner, contact cleaner, at least like a dry type silicone. I used also, which I'll show you that, brake cleaner, dry silicone, some kind of an acid, a light acid. I use a product that I get from the welding supply. It is for working aluminum when you want to kind of clean it in between and prior to welding and clean up afterwards. It works great on brass and other things. You can use, you want a light acid, you can also use, and I mentioned this in the video, you can go and get vinegar. It's like the industrial strength cleaning vinegar, and put it in a spray bottle or use a brush. But I'm going to take you through all of that in a minute. Everything is working good now for me, and I'm very happy. So I caught everything just in time. This could be a problem lurking. The gremlins are working away at it. We're going to talk about it in the video why this happens, other than a short or a bad power coming down the line. There's other reasons. Generally, you shut the door, and if you're not adding circuits, or you don't pop a breaker, you shut that panel door and you're not thinking about it, and that's when the gremlins come out and they're going to be working their way at it. So let's get started on what I did to solve this problem, get everything back up and running. I am responsible for the house and the shop, and if you have a shop and you're handy and you think you could do something like this, or at least go in there, guys, and take a look. And if you feel you can't handle it, or you don't want to do it the way I did it, and you're going to spend the money and replace all these parts, great. Maybe you want to hire somebody to do it. Maybe you know somebody that can do it. But you might feel comfortable enough after watching this to at least go in there and inspect it and see what you got going on, because you could save yourself an awful lot of heartache. Let's get started. All right, this is my north wall service. So that's a 110 panel. This is a 100 amp. Mostly 220, and you can see all the burning. Let me turn the other light on. See all the burning in there, right? I actually just moved the main breaker over to the other side because there's issues on that side, and I burned one there, and even these are starting to burn, and you can actually start to see oxidation and sparking. So that can be cleaned up with a bit of acid. I use a particular acid for that, and then we need to put a coating on it, a dielectric later, but I'm going to see if I can replace this whole section. We need to take all of this apart, but before I do that, I got to get my power working a little bit longer. So pull each breaker, and it's not a bad thing to do, is inspect your breakers. I have another panel. The back panel I have is, I'll show it to you guys. It's actually a bit rusty. This is a north wall, and there's no insulation, so water can migrate in, especially if you mount it to concrete. You're always better off mounting it to wood. We can see burning down in there. So its insulation is gone. So what I want to do is, for now, I'm just going to clean these up with a wire brush. I cleaned the main breaker up with my acid and some abrasive, and then I moved it over to the other side to get better contacts. I'll pull these off, just kind of hit them with a wire brush, get everything just sort of a little bit more clean, and then put this back together. And then what we'll do is we'll pull this whole panel off. I'll use this back box because it's in good shape, but we'll put on a new center section, right, the bus section. And by pulling it away from the wall, we're going to put some like 3/4 or 1 inch fiber insulation board to separate it, to give it a separation. So I'm going to just work on this right now. So one of the things you can do is, first you have to make sure there's no grease on it. Brake cleaner does that. And then you can take, this is an acid, this is a welding acid. We use this, it's called Alumibrite, and it will shine up aluminum and brass and electrical contacts, and you want to get some of that in there. And I'm starting to get some issues in that one, which is why I want to pull this off the wall. I want to get a vapor barrier on it. And even though this is all open to the interior, this exchange, it's so damp here. Northern wall, we're not that far from the water, and that causes a lot of problems. And then over here, I'm just going to take and stand to the side, so if I can show you. But over here, I did all the others, but we're just going to take our wire brush. They're not bad, but just to sort of scuff it up. And if they're really bad, you got to get rid of it. But yeah, this is pretty clean. These are okay. And one of the top ones is starting to anneal from getting too hot. Well, it's cleaner. Not my best work, but that should work for now. Everything's blowed off. The only thing I lost is the screws for the cover. I don't know what the hell I did with that. But because I moved the breaker to the other side, this main breaker, I can't put the cover on. So I found the panel. I got to dig it out tomorrow, and we got to get on this soon. All right, it's upside down, but so this is the view of the box I was talking about. What's good is we get a couple of extra breakers out of the deal too. I get 2 100 amperes, which means I can replace that 100 amp breaker that is in my panel here. That's also causing me some issues. Now this is the bar, right? The bus bar. It's in good shape. I'm going to remove it, and let's see if it's the same. I'm going to take it out first. It looks like it is. It just needs to be cleaned up a little. All right, this is what I wanted from there. And the only difference is that this piece here for the top breaker, that's the only difference. So we're just going to lance that off, clean this up, blow it off. Just a little bit of my acid and a wire brush just to make sure all of these lands have, no junk on them. Then we'll put a little dielectric on too before we install it. All right, so I modified the bus. So it should be good to go. And then I cleaned it with the acid. I put a little wire brush and a little bit of Scotch-Brite. And then I put some of the Dow Corning dielectric. And then I also put a little bit of silicone spray on it. And that should stabilize it. I've got the original older 100 amp breaker, which seems to be in pretty good shape overall. But it's acting weird. Like now it's clicking, but seems like it's okay. But I did lubricate it a little bit. Then we got this one, which is a little bit newer. And I had to clean the contacts a little bit on this one too. And this was inside the house. It looks good now. There was a little bit of burning going on there as well. So time to get this done. Hello, doggy. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Okay, this is cleaning up good. I had one extra breaker downstairs. A 15 ampere, so we got a 20 ampere here. I may move these around. I'm gonna think about it. So we got the 100 amp new one. Well, it's not a new one. It's in really good shape. It's like the original one to that 100 amp box. Perfect shape. Everything's lubricated. Everything is cleaned. Everything has been sprayed with some silicone, and some silicone is put on it. All right, tell me that doesn't look cleaner. All right, bus is in. It's a lot cleaner. Finally. Tomorrow I'll deal with this one. I'm too tired now, but that's done. All the breakers, I just gotta label them tomorrow. I'm too tired. but it's all there nested nice. I could use another 15 amp breaker. All right, so now this is the 110 box. I shut the breaker off on the other panel, right, that feeds it. So that's our 220 and our feeder load center. I'm just gonna check it with the Wiggy, and I'll show you guys the Wiggy in a minute. And I'll blow this out, and then we'll remove the box, right? We'll just loosen it up, drop it down. I wanna level it with this one. Why they're not level with each other, I don't know. But we're gonna make them level. And I'm going to put the insulator in, right? And so that'll stop, because you can feel, even like it's just cold. There's no insulation behind it. And like I said, this is the north wall. And like yesterday, it was very windy and the temperature dropped and all night long. So we got to get this wall. This is the only section of the wall, by the way, guys, it's not insulated. So we got to get this thing closed up and insulated. So this is the next step. And once it's remounted and it's level, we'll pull all the breakers off and I'll inspect everything. And I think it's one of these breakers. It could be a bad breaker or it could just be bad connections. It doesn't look terrible in there, but I can actually see some issues right there on that main breaker. I see it, and you'll see it in a little bit. We'll blow it all out with compressed air in a bit. But yep, I see it already starting to happen. Same problem. Oh look, there's one of the box. Where'd that come from? Maybe the rest of them aren't in here. I started moving it, pulling off the main breaker, and you could hear it. I don't know if you can hear it because most of the sound's gone probably, but you hear that? It's like scraping. All right, so we're gonna get a little WD-40 on that. Well, let's see. I'm just nervous because you could break the breaker. But oh my God, that should come right out. Let's push it back in. I'm gonna have to get a little WD-40 on that. That's it. This has got to come out. I don't really need this, but I guess that's to hold it in. I probably should have it on the other one. Kind of clamps in there. Oh my. Now you're not going to see it here, but yeah, I'll get you in close. This one in particular. I mean, burning. Oh yeah. Oh my. Yeah, I'll get you in here. Let me show you. With all the crunchy. Yeah. All right, let me get these breakers off so I can get in there and clean properly. I guess it's the only way. All right, so most of this stuff is not too bad. I'll take them one at a time and take a good look at them. But since we started off with a little bit of WD, right, we're going to have to remove WD. You can clean with WD, but we're going to use a little bit of acid on the top contact. So we just have to get some of the residual WD off. Otherwise, any lubricant or whatever will impede the acid. And also, it's a good way to get things sort of cleaned up to start off with. So I'll start off with this. I could take this whole bar off, but there's only a couple of contacts, like this one here. That one's got it, the one that I showed you. Yeah. A little bit of this acid on this guy here, and these here. I think that's the only one, honestly. The others look pretty good, so we should be able to just clean those up in a more conventional manner. But this one here, we'll start off with, you gotta get some of those gravelly bits. It should be smooth. That feels good. It's down here too. Yeah, you can see it. Build it up. Let's wipe it off. Get rid of some of it. And put a little bit more acid on. And then let it sit. And I want to just go over these with just this wire brush. And then maybe a little Scotch-Brite. I got to get in closer with the flashlight, but this should do it. You can see it's definitely cleaning things up. It's removing a lot of the junk. I'm kind of working in the dark here, fellas, so I don't know if it's going to really focus a lot on it, but we have some light. So let me just blow this out. It's been sitting for a little while, and I ran the sandpaper through this contact a little bit. So this is essentially what we're doing, back and forth. And what the acid that I'm using is Alumabrite. I get it at the welding supply, and it's great for brass and copper and stainless and, of course, aluminum. And we use this to clean the aluminum during and before welding. All right, let me blow it out because we want to get some of the junk out of there. Okay, now, I don't want to use a lot. I'll put a little bit on that guy, too, because I don't want to flood the breaker with acid. So I'm holding it down in a way as best I can, and then I'm just going to work that contact. Once I'm happy with it, we'll rinse it with brake cleaner and then some WD-40 blowing in between and wiping, and I got to get all the moisture out. But like I keep saying, like you're not going to get it with just sandpaper. You need something to kind of get in there, and that's going to dissolve and loosen up this oxidation that's here. So why does it happen? Well, gremlins. What's gremlins are? You know, gremlins, hobbits, right? You know, little critters. Irish have their name for them. I think everybody's got a name for it. You know, the thing that where when you go to bed and you turn the lights off, as soon as you fall asleep, these things come out, right? And they start screwing up everything that you did during the day and the days before, and they're always working when you're not looking. They stop. They disappear. Obviously, it's gremlins, okay? Because the look, you could see gremlins did that. Oh, Arch, what's really happened? Well, a brief lesson is, well, AC Power in particular has got this thing where it tends to ride in this like aurora. I don't remember the technical terms right now, but it's riding kind of on the outside of the conduit, which, you know, electrical wire, whatever you want to call it, whatever the conduit is. In this case, it's a contact. And it's interacting with its environment. And the higher the potential, in other words, the more current and voltage you have, the more that's occurring. And that is interacting with the environment around it. And it's like speeding up the oxidation of the conduit, in this case, the contact. And contacts. So I gotta stop doing that. Contacts are not like a solid piece of wire. There's some space, small as it may be, is some space in between. That's why you got to keep them real clean, right? Like saying like points and everything, right? When you're doing points on your engines, all points, and you got to get them clean, right? Because as soon as you'll get this micro sparking, and so as soon as you get a little bit of micro sparking, then you'll have more sparking, which will oxidize whatever's on that contact, making things worse, building up the surface area of the debris left over from the arcing and the ozone exchange and the oxidation and converting to carbon and God knows whatever else it's going to convert it to, because it depends upon what environment it's in. And that ozone's that extra molecule of oxygen, and that's eating away. And so this process is going, and then to make it worse, right, there's a 60 hertz oscillation, right? It's a 60 hertz frequency, and then you get micro frequencies as an overlay on top of that. As using the 60 hertz as a carrier wave. So if you were like really super zoom in on a scope, you would see additional pulses and oscillations. And so this becomes a mess. As soon as you get one that is not well connected as opposed to the other, or more loading on one leg than the other, and this is also indicative of additional loading on this leg. You may want to review that. Right, there's more load being pulled on that leg of the 220 than of the other leg. And it makes it worse. And it gets worse and worse and worse and worse until you get this, right? And then this is really bad. And you actually see, if you look back at the metal, there's micro pitting, but mostly the deposition is whatever plating, which is very often zinc, right?
they usually put like a zinc compound on some of those. On the bus, it's got, this is the old bus, so this is some kind of zinc coating, either zinc or aluminum. But it's a coating. It's a kind of coating on top of the substrate material, which is probably copper. You can see it. This one, look, it burned that right off. It just said, up, had enough. And you see it's like a bird shit weld, right? That whenever you try like crappy welding, see, it's developed it here, and it's actually overplating, pushing the contacts away even more, and this is not really conductive. And you got even more over here. And then you get blammo. Look at this one. This one was doing it, and you feel it. And that'll eat away at the contact. It'll actually raise this is actually higher than the surface of the contact in that area. And it'll push it away, and just a nightmare. So, yes, you could replace this, but I don't have any money. You guys want to donate? I might actually set up a little PayPal donation or something, because I do all of this stuff and I share all this information. And it's not like I'm well endowed with cash at all. So at some point, donations and commercials and all of that. I know some people are like, oh, it's like you're supposed to do this for free, as if we owe everything to the community and should not receive any benefit. Whoever thinks like that, give me a break, right? It'd be great if we could be 100% benevolent in all things, but until that day cometh, right, we still need stuff to pay our bills, and this is hard-won knowledge. A lot of the knowledge that I have, I'm getting old now, so I almost died twice recently, and so I'm trying to bequeath some of that knowledge to you all, right or wrong, even if I have some errors in my knowledge, right? We do the best we can. So the only thing we can do is just try to get this out of here. So I think we've got it. I think that's about as clean as it's going to get. And then I'm going to just try to bend those contacts back a little. Yeah, I think this is good. So let's go get our brake cleaner. Let me blow this off camera. Now, next step is we'll just blow. I know there's not a lot of light. Got a little bit left in this. Get these contacts too. Maybe more light. I could probably just put this light on. That's probably going to make it worse, because you're going to see it in the camera, and you're going to be like, "Oh, turn that off! I keep staring at it." Right? You ever see that? Guys put like somebody's standing there talking to you, and there's a light coming in a window coming in from behind them, and it's not creating a halo like they're a saint. It's just annoying, and it's in your eyes. You have to think about stuff like that. You got to be a good camera person. All right, let me blow it. All right, now I'm going to put a little WD on it. Let's get a little bit of this WD-40 on it, mostly because I want to clean up the contact a little, and also this will help drive off any water, any of that liquid moisture. All right, and blow it again. Okay, now you could stop here, but we'll go one more step. I'm going to do this to basically all of them. And we're going to put some of this. This is extreme CRC extreme duty silicone. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know which way that I'm going to face the camera, but we're going to put some on here. This is like a dry. I'm going to coat I got to get more of this. I got to make sure I order more. Yeah, I'm almost out. I have just enough to do this job. So I got to leave that out. That's good. All right, now it'll dry up. Yeah, that's good. And then we're going to take, where's my little screwdriver? Just going to look in here and just pinch these guys together a little bit. They'll go, because they've been flexed. There we go. Yeah, it's just a relatively thin piece of copper, really. There we go. Just kind of make them about the same. That's better. All right. Let me go back to the other stuff. I'm happy with that. All right, there's our 50 amp breaker. So that's our 50 amp. We're done with that. So far, so good. Now I'm going to put a little bit of this acid on here. And I'm just going to go over all of these contacts real quick, just to get a little bit of a micro polish. I'll do both sides of the contacts. Now I'm going to just start blotting and then blowing. And then we got to flush it with brake cleaner, which is, I guess I say, is like contact cleaner. All right, and this will displace any water. So that's the brake clean. And of course a bit more blotting. And then we'll let it air dry too. It'll have time to air dry. This will air dry, even though it's not. It's raining again for the third day. And that's my biggest issue, is that, you know, everybody had a dry season this year, really bad. But we get wicked rainy seasons, and it just keeps going. Now you could buy this, it's silicone really. You could buy this from Electrical Supply. There's a number, you can go online and get it. Well, I'm going to put all this on, just like a thin coat, nothing crazy, but a coat. And then I'm going to spray on. You can also put it, by the way, on the contacts themselves. I'm gonna spray the contacts on the breakers. But I'm gonna spray that on. But yeah, you could put that on there with like a Q-tip or something. Now just a quick spray, just to protect everything else. Nothing fancy. Like I said, this will dry. Now we've already put some on this contact, or contactor, or circuit breaker, or on the contacts. I'm sorry, I'm not really thinking. I'm trying to do different things at the same time and talk to you guys. I want to make sure this lines up correctly. Sometimes when they get damaged, they pinch and they don't line up right. All right, that's on there good. See how nice and clean that is? All right. I know, I'm sorry I covered over the one that was a little damaged, but what's this? I'm starting to rush. I'm getting tired, and it's going to be dark again soon. It gets dark quick now. And here's one, fellas, that I found one on this circuit here, and so this one was so tight, it was good, but I could see there was oxidation. So I got one of my little bastard files, a little bit of the acid, and I ran it in there just a couple of times and let it sit for about 5 minutes, go do something, take a break. And then now we can come back. And I want to make sure I get all the junk out. And the last thing, just to protect our oxidation, let that dry. Everything is wiped down, clean. This is an extra leg, so I'm going to want to wrap that up and put that up there. It's nice and clean. Checked for tight. I checked everything for tight. All the connections are good, right? And now we got to test it. Oh, I'm going to put the cover on. I want to show you guys the wiggy. All right. So this should be live now. I got the lights off. Oh, see? Right, see? Now I feel it. I don't know if you can hear it, but and it's up here, 120, and I measured before it was 240. But you got the light too, so I can feel it. You can kind of hear it. I think the heater's running. All right, and that's nice. And these are spring loaded, so you got a bit of safety too. Okay, so it's having a few problems, and what I did was I flipped the bus around the other direction. And that way, I don't know, can you see it? Where is it? I'll make sure I have it right. Okay, so that right, this is the main bus up here. Like this is the feeder part. And they use this section. They used to use it from the top, but it's these two. That's the 50 amp breaker on this one I'm using. This is rated for, I think, 150 amps, this box. So one of them was a little damaged, and you can see it over here a little bit. It's a little bit damaged on that side. So by flipping it around, it was this leg. It was buzzing on and off, and I was losing one of the circuits on the 110, right? It's one leg on one side, one leg on the other. So I'm going to flip it around the other way. That way I have good power coming in, and I'm just going to have to not use this slot. I could use this slot, but that slot on this left side. You could use it on the right side, but I'm not using those slots anyway right now, right? So just going to have to keep a note of that. So for future reference, it's the second to bottom slot on the left-hand side, but we can use it on the right-hand side because there's no damage there. Now, I can't put the main breaker on this side. There's a block off there, so we can't do that. And I'm not modifying the box to do that. There's no point in that. And if I ever had to do that in the future, fine. But let me put this back together and let me close it up. Okay, so now that's all straightened out. I started laying out all my breakers, and I did find out something from fooling around with this, is that I have my computer on a lighting circuit. That's no good, okay? And it's this circuit here. This is empty. These are full. So I'm gonna wanna check that. But we're good here. It's getting late now. It really is late now. It's like 7 or 8 o'clock. But we should be good to go because I was doing my load testing, putting loads on things and doing some stuff, and that's what I turned up. All right, fellas, that's it. Hopefully that was useful info for you guys. Like I said at the beginning, I'm up and running now, and I'm very happy, so everything seems to be stable. I just have a few more things to fool around with in here, and then I'm done with this project. I wanted to mention, too, is that this house is almost 100 years old. We had knob and tube wiring originally, all right? And I think I have like one circuit left up in the attic, which we almost never use, but it's still there. It's frightening. It's really cool. Look up knob and tube wiring. So there's been upgrades on upgrades and people fooling around, and the other homeowner who was a scientist, but he could work for Brookhaven Labs. But good luck with him, right? A lot of these guys, they're very good in the books, but they're not good with the hands and the practical knowledge. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching this one, and hopefully it's a little bit of a public service announcement. See you guys later.